Glenn looks relaxed.
All right, yeah, Glenn,
He
it's
looks relaxed.
not much going on this Thursday. Let's start. Let's talk about the who will be punting for the Alouettes next year. You know what? That funny joke. That's what used to happen on the show. They used to go that deep. But no, we're going to go Trevor Harris re-signing with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, as we talked about. No one's really surprised. It was the best play, especially when they said they didn't kick the tires on VA. We got him locked up.
Yeah, and it's an important signing with the, when you're playing musical chairs and they're walking around those chairs and they're sort of disappearing one at a time, and then you start to think, man, if I don't get my chair soon, and I don't mean to say that they were after VA, because as you mentioned, weren't really kicking the tires. They felt like with Trevor, clearly they know that they have a quarterback that is capable of taking them to the championship. Now, and we'll get more into this as we get into late January, but now the priority in protecting Trevor Harris, in that balance in the offense, in looking at free agency and how they can put more great talented people around him, because he is more than capable. I mean, not only on the field in his skill set and his accuracy, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in CFL history, by the way. But yeah,
true story.
Yeah, but also his processing speed, his quickness in reading defenses. Nothing really surprises him. And now they got to keep him healthy, and that's the most important part at his age, and that's been sort of the issue with him over the last couple of years. Not his fault, happens, but keep him healthy. You've got a quarterback and a starter you can work with. And now, what is going to be available for the next guy? What are you looking at to develop the next guy?
Before we go to that, I want to say, too, now, how do the dominoes fall? That Trevor's like, let's go. Let's roll, boys, one more time. How many of those free agents are like, I'm in, too?
Absolutely. No question. I mean, especially the offensive side of the ball, but on both sides. I mean, ask anybody who had, the VA discussion and what happened with Nathan Rourke. And, I still believe Nathan's going to be a star player in this league and he'll get his game back. But that splitting of the room, if it happened in Vancouver, was what, to your point about the importance of the team believing in the guy you have there. And if you have two guys that can do it, they have to believe in both. I was part of a team that we believed in Tom Burgess and Kent Austin. We believed we could win with both of them. There was no issue about the room and who'd rather play or anything like that. It wasn't there because both handled it well and both were capable of winning. Now they've got Trevor. They'll sign free agents that were maybe on the bubble, wondering what's going to happen at that position. Because those free agents, anybody, in the receiving corps is going to look at this and go, oh, well, we got a guy that can get me the ball now. So I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Big time.
So what is that? And, Barney hinted to it, what's happened to the Riders then because we get Trevor in play. What does it do to the quarterback free agency situation in the rest of the league, and in particular as it relates to maybe Cody Fajardo?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, first, can Jason Moss, who I'm sure ideally would like to have both there, knowing that Davis Alexander is going to be the guy that's going to, get the keys to the car. And, is Cody going to be okay with that after just recently taking that same team to a championship, as we're watching the highlight of the last drive 2 years ago? So, I think that's going to be sort of a mountain that Moss and Cody Fajardo are going to have to kind of climb together, get a read on that. And if it doesn't work out there, then what a great add to any team in the league that could bring in Cody Fajardo and say, he's going to be our solid number 2 / quarterback coach. Not that Fajardo's ready to retire or anything, but I could see him as a nice fit on any of these teams, including the Riders. But
no, I don't like that.
I don't think that this is not a landing zone for Cody Fajardo.
You know how Rider fans are.
Yeah,
It'll be Trevor Harris will run onto the field the wrong way, and some people will be saying, "Put in Fajardo."
Yeah.
That's how they are.
That's the longest shot, no question, because of the history of there, because it wasn't long ago that he was there, and they've sort of moved on from him. I get that. And perception is part of it. Perception can become reality very quickly. So that would be sort of the last. But I'm just talking about a quarterback room. You go across the league, and you put Bo Levi Mitchell and Cody Fajardo in the same quarterback room. Boy, as a coach, I love my chances no matter what happens to the other guy.
Yeah, it's going to be real. I said it earlier. I think it started when I was talking to Dunk at the start of the show. I feel that this is going to be the year where there's guys that aren't going to have a place to play. And then are they going to stay in shape? Are they going to keep chucking down south? Are they going to be waiting for that phone call? Because, yeah, you do need to go 2 quarterbacks deep in this league, maybe even at sometimes 3. Where do you think and how quick do you think we find out anything about Patterson after this, Glenn?
Well, like I said, the dominoes, and you've said the dominoes will fall quickly as everyone sort of in free agency waits for, the top guys to get settled out. And then because after the top, let's say 20 guys, and there's a lot of free agents now with 1-year contracts, which is something that the new commissioner can fix, or hopefully will fix. but when your top 20 guys, that are going to get bigger money than normal, when they disappear quickly, then the rest of the dominoes fall. That's when guys go, well, the difference between me moving for 10 grand or staying for less, a little bit less, a home field or a home team discount, things like that come into play. The money's not as big a difference anymore. And my advice to free agents anyway, guys, would be don't make it about the money. Do not make it about the money. Go call Kenny Lawler and ask him how it worked out when he got 1 year with a little bit more money and didn't like his time in Edmonton, really. It was kind of like, okay, he still made some big plays, but it wasn't the same thing for him, and he got his butt back to Winnipeg as quickly as he could.
So on that free agent conversation, and again, I agree with you, the money's only part of it. And there's so many other elements to it, including coaching staff and the rest of the room. Who, besides quarterbacks, and we've beat that to death today. I think we've talked about every quarterback back up and forward. Who else is going to be the free agent that somebody's going to look to, like we had with the running back that the Rider Ouellette when they signed them last year? Who's going to be the free agent that everybody looks to?
Yeah, there's a few out there, and I haven't gone through the whole list, but I did see Matthew Betts is on it. I think right now, whether it's free agency or the draft, every year I'm in this game, I feel more and more like if you don't have a good line of scrimmage offensively and defensively, it's going to be an uphill battle. You can still pull it off, but it is going to be an uphill battle. You don't win 9 out of your last 10 if you don't have a great offensive line. You don't. And it's not sexy to talk about. But, those guys will tell you they even fine each other when they're in the news or in the media. So, they understand it too. But I just think the offensive and defensive lines is the priority every single year, no matter who your quarterback or your receivers are. If you're going to overspend there. Do not overspend on a receiver or a linebacker.
It's like the controller or the accountant. Super important, but it's not the sexy position.
You don't see him so much, but he's
not,
critical.
Right?
He's critical. She, they, them.
Yeah. Very critical.
Yeah.
JC Sherritt to Edmonton. We talked about it, I don't know, last week. You and I talked about it as well. That was a given, right?
Yeah, great fit. And, this is where we get to see, a couple of brand new coaches in the league, and Mark Killam, here with Buck Pierce, who I watched his in Vancouver with his press conference, and he was asked about, it sounds like he's going to be a play caller, by the way, that's just a little add-on, but Mark Killam wants to put together a young, dynamic, ready to evolve and buy into his system type of coaching staffs, and that's a great fit. J.C. Sherritt's got a great reputation, and with Mark Killam stepping in and bringing in sort of a new attitude with Ed Hervey understanding the history of the game and the history of Edmonton football, and then Killam, who has been the front runner for how many years now, guys? 8 years? I think it's been 8 years. Every off season for the last 8 years, Mark Killam has been the number one prospect for a new head coaching job, and so finally he's got it. And you see Matt Dunnigan on that mural right behind there.
Doesn't it kind of have a little bit of a taste of what we did last year in Sasky with Mace rallying the troops, all these guys coming in, let's run through the wall for them. And then now it's like Edmonton kind of saw that brand, saw that, and was like,
that works.
Copy. Hey,
yeah,
best things in the world have been copied.
Exactly.
Let's kind of get that feel going here. And they have so many ties to that city.
Yeah, and J.C. Sherritt does, as a former Edmonton Eskimo back in the day. And they've got a great tradition of linebackers and having that sort of edge and attitude that Ed Hervey played with, that now is going to trickle down through the coaching staff. So you're absolutely right. And Corey Mace is a good example of it. His approach and the staff that he brought in, making sure that, taking a chance in some ways on Mark Mueller taking the reins as a OC, and look at how positive that was. I mean, Trevor Harris, you just asked Trevor Harris about his offensive coordinator last year. He will go on for 20 minutes about how much he loves him. And Trevor Harris has had many. So, and very quickly, Mark is already been talked about as maybe the next head coach down the road here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we don't, let's hold off on that. Don't know.
I think that's a little early.
Change his number.
Yeah.
Need a number change. Forget that 639 area code, whatever the other Sasky area.
Nobody even uses it. Yeah.
Need him around here for a while. What do you think is the next, because it's been for 2 weeks now, almost 3 weeks, something happening almost every other day in the CFL. What's the next domino, to fall when it comes to big news in the league? Is it the commish? Is it another maybe coaching move? Is it a quarterback thing? What do you think?
Well, I think now you're going to see a lot of these staffs getting, filled out, like whether it be assistant coaches and stuff, but those won't be the biggest news. The biggest news, and it has been a pretty tight vault. In Seinfeld, when they're in the vault, you're in the vault. It's in the vault, Jerry.
You know what the comb is, as Elaine says, it's the schnapps. It's a great episode.
Yeah. So, I think those are all important topics to discuss when they come up. But the biggest one is going to be the commissioner. And as of right now, it's been pretty tight-lipped. I mean, you're not hearing a lot of rumors, not a lot of names flying around. Now, Randy Ambrosie has said it's sort of an arrangement here, which is different than I think any other year. If you go back to, Larry Smith and John Tory and Mike Lisco, and the list goes on in recent memory of commissioners, they were either let go where they had to leave at the end of the season, or they stepped aside, they stepped down at the end of a season, and the replacement and the discussions on replacement people came up right after that. So that's a little different than this. This is Randy Ambrosie said, I'm going to continue to run the league and run the office until you find a new guy. And that probably allows the board of governors and the owners to sit there and go, well, look, we got Christmas. We get through Christmas and New Year's, the holiday season.
Festivus.
And then what was it? The feats of strength? Feats of, no.
Yeah, feats of strength.
Yeah.
Airing of grievances.
Isn't that the 23rd? Isn't the 23rd Festivus?
Yeah.
Yes.
And this guy's from the betting track come over. And Kramer brings them. This is going sideways here.
Okay, Glenn, you don't have any names you're gonna leave out. You're gonna leave for us to.
I don't, guys, because I've actually, when Barney and I talked on Tuesday, we kind of teased that, let's look into the new commissioner. What are the names out there? What are people talking about? I made a few calls, and honestly, this may be the first time in the history of Canadian football that the Board of Governors are actually keeping tight-lipped and keeping a secret. I just...
You know what I'm getting out of that?
Because they know the all-new sports cage is out there blabbing about
Glenn,
everything.
I'm getting out of there that's you. That you're in line to be the next commissioner.
I was gonna.
That's why you're playing the cards like this. You're the name.
I was gonna say maybe they got a couple of candidates that came in that they had no idea, and it's making it really, really
and
tough.
one of them sitting there. Yeah.
Well, here's the interesting thing to me, guys, is because if you go back into recent history, like early 90s, and we're talking about now names like Jeffrey Orridge and Tom Wright and Mike Lisco and John Tory, who's an interim commissioner for a while, and then even back to Mark Cohen in there, who did some really good things. Mark Cohen increased the TV numbers, the TV contract, and some investment in stadiums happened during his reign. So there was some good things that happened along the way. But the question comes up with this new commissioner is, what's the priority? And we've talked about marketers. Mike Lisco was supposed to be a dynamic marketer. We talked about guys that have been in the corporate world like Mark Cohen and Tom Wright. And not only the corporate world, but sports corporations like Adidas and Reebok and UFC. These guys all had backgrounds in marketing and backgrounds in the corporate side of sports business. And that clearly, and what their resume said, was the priority. And we've gone through 7 or 8 of them now. Some have done some decent things. Ambrosi did a couple of very good things, but I think the closest to having someone understand what makes the game great, and then therefore, because they know that, then can take it and sell it, so that they can command an understanding of the Canadiana of it, that they can walk into a corporation and talk about the Canadian. One of the great things that hockey has done is with that whole coffee, amateur hockey marketing scheme, and so that they can change perception, especially in the big markets. The messaging, the understanding, doesn't have to be a former player necessarily, but the messaging and the understanding of what makes Canadian football great, to me, has got to be the priority. You can hire a corporate assistant. You can hire legal help if you need it somewhere down the road. By the way, Jeffrey Orridge, who I would put at the bottom of the list I just mentioned.
Yep.
Jeffrey Orridge was a Harvard law grad. An American who didn't really know what made our game great, and therefore couldn't sell it, and therefore couldn't grow and change the perception of it in the big cities.
Is the 10th franchise still in the mix? Is that still a priority for the CFL to get that 10th franchise?
Quebec City.
Whether it's Quebec City or the Maritimes? I
think it has to be. It absolutely has to be. But rather than do it right now, where we're seeing tremendous growth over the last 2 or 3 years, both financially, and the strength in ownership, the fan engagement, all of that, the arrows are up. Rather than take that right now into, Quebec City or Halifax, let's continue to build and change the perception in some of the bigger cities. Let's continue to build that young fan base so that they come to us, because it won't take long. With this type of trend, it won't take long. It'll take 5 to 7 years with constant communication in the building of a new stadium and what that can do in those two hubs, or building on Laval to make that a pro stadium. And then by that time, the growth will be there. The perception will have changed. But you can't do that in 2 or 3 years. You've got to do that in 7 to 10. And then they come to you and say, we want in. We want to be part of the club. And that's where I think you'll see that 10th franchise.
You're planting seeds. You're building the brand.
Listen to you.
Build it, and then Sacramento will come back.
The Sacramento gold miners will return.
Let me add this, because I know you're an NFL fan as well. Like, you think back to Pete Rozelle. Pete Rozelle was maybe the best commissioner in pro sports, in any sport. And his big influence was in changing the perception of the NFL. The NFL at that time had 12 teams. and he in his reign changed that to 28. Now that's not possible in Canada, but another one is, a 10th is. And what he did too was talk about the presentation and understanding the game. His background in school was marketing, was PR and marketing. Then he gets in there for 30 years, and what does he create? He creates Monday Night Football. And then he creates competition with networks on a TV deal that has now gone into the billions of dollars all those years later. Pete Rozelle was a great example of, I think, what we need to be looking for in the next commission.
And when our kids talk about, and grandkids, about Roger Goodell, it'll go down, because that's really the gambling era, which really took it off. And then they were kind of like, no, gambling, bad. And now they've embraced it, and it's like, yeah, you can't win that battle. Okay, Glenn, we got to get to some hockey talk here. Always a pleasure. Have a fantastic... Hey, my wife and kids were at a shoe store in Vancouver. They sent me a picture. If you can go there and grab any credit cards before they get out. They're there for the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh, are they? They're going for Swift.
Oh yeah. They're in the economy there. They're helping the economy in Vancouver this weekend.
Well, I just found out that on the secondary market, you're not going to want to hear this, but a Taylor Swift sweatshirt is going for like $500. A sweatshirt. So
yeah.
Okay.
I got some
for them.
I got some people in Butcherias right now bringing me a couple of Taylor Swift ponchos back for her. Here, this is one of a kind. This is what you got. Talk to you next week, buddy.
Okay,
See you, Glenn.